It was your birthday yesterday. I gave a gift that almost took your breath away. But to be honest, I nearly left it on the train. For your lover, give some time.
Richard Hawley is an English singer and songwriter from Sheffield, England. He was in the band The Long Pigs in the 1990s, and he spent a short time in the band Pulp in 2000, thereabouts, before he started his solo career. He released his first album in 2001 and has released 7 more since. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was Richard Hawley's 6th album, and my first encounter with him, I think. I certainly don't remember having listened to him before. Once again, I'll tell you briefly a little bit about my process for doing reviews. So normally what I'll do is I'll listen to an album once, as blind as I can. So if it's something that I don't know anything about the act, I will do a listen before I actually read anything up about them. Then I'll do a little bit of quick reading, mostly Wikipedia, to be honest, and then I'll do another listen. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in my first listen for this, I was fairly convinced that this was a 1970s album, and there are good reasons for that. So I was quite surprised when I found out that it was quite a bit later than that. How would I describe it? It's quite mellow singer-songwriter stuff, but when I say mellow, I mean it's kind of slow and measured and paced. Occasionally, actually, it's quite big. In terms of the sound, sometimes there's a string section going on, and in some ways it reminded me of the early Scott Walker stuff, certainly of stuff of that kind of late 60s, of people that would sing with these huge orchestras and sing in a very grand way. People like Neil Diamond, for example, would sing like that sometimes. Anyway. There's a great listing on Wikipedia of what instruments are played on the different tracks, which is a great level of detail, and there's some interesting instruments going in, some really quite unusual stuff. There's a mandola mentioned, so that's like a slightly bigger version of a mandolin. So a mandola is to a viola as a mandolin is to a violin. Okay. There's a glass harmonica, which I've seen video of people playing. It was an instrument that reputedly drove people mad. I don't know how much truth there was in that. There's a crystal bachette, which I've never heard of before, so I had to look that up. There's a musical saw, which has a really interesting sound. There's an Ondes Martenot, which I had heard of before, but I don't really know much about. Excuse me. So along with this, lots of other instruments as well, so it's, listing exactly what guitars were used and things like that, which I always find fascinating. Along with all that, there's so it's mostly these kind of, very singer-songwriter, big song, slow, kind of mellow feel. There are some instrumental sections, and some of them are quite spacey, which is kind of space rock kind of soundscapey things. Sometimes musically it's quite simple. In fact, generally the kind of the harmonic structures and the chord structure are quite straightforward. There's one track which is Don't You Cry, which is just 2 chords repeated over and over again. It takes its time and it's slow. His voice is fairly low. It's not as low as somebody like Nick Drake, but and quite laconic in his delivery, so it's quite kind of melancholy overall is the feel to it. I found myself feeling there was something interesting about the way he pronounced his words that wasn't quite it wasn't quite the same as you'd kind of normally expect. I found it hard to put my finger on what it was. I thought maybe it was something in the way that he held his lips, and then when I looked up and read about him, I found that he'd had operations on a cleft palate when he was a youngster. I was thinking, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what gives that slight different edge to the consonants that he's got. Anyway, that's not any detriment. It was just an observation. The songwriting is generally good, I would say, but I wouldn't say it was spectacular. I reasonably enjoyed it, but occasionally it felt a bit cliched. There were a couple of points where it just felt like, yeah, that was quite predictable. And that was my only real complaint with this album. In general, I would say I wasn't blown away by it, but I quite liked it. And that's what I think. So please let me know what you think by telling me, by typing something into the comments box. That's it from me for now.
The future here is shattered. Your voice as thin as rain. Unholy broken shadows. You know you